Hello, and welcome back to the podcast series, Top 10 MLB Players at Each Position. From Diamond Digest, these lists were made by the baseball minds at Diamond Digest, and we're announcing them on a rotating basis here. I'm your host, as always, Sean Huff, and today we're doing the top 10 center fielders in baseball. Joining me today, once again, you may remember him from the second base episode. It is Joey Bohley. How are you today, Joey?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited for this list. I already said you joined for the second base list, and when we did that one, we were kind of in agreement that it was a deeper position than second usually is, but it was still pretty weak. This one feels a lot better to me. It feels like there's 9 really, really good players at this position. Then you have some room at number 10 to sneak in a pet favorite or something, but this feels a lot better. What did you think of this group?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's certainly a couple, 4 or 5 at the top that are pretty solid ahead of the rest, but it's pretty deep. It's not a super steep curve in terms of what we saw like at second base, where it kind of dropped off pretty quick. Lots of good center fielders, lots of good outfielders in general. So this one and then the other two outfield lists are going to be pretty interesting to talk about.
Yeah, they're all pretty fun lists. So, first thing we're going to do, as always, is show where this position stood last year and a little preview of what the field looks like for this year. So, last year, we have the list on the screen now. We considered Mike Trout a left fielder last year, so that's why he's not number 1. In his stead, Brian Reynolds replaced him, and he was followed pretty closely. It was actually a very close vote last year with, I believe, 4 different players getting number 1 votes. But Luis Robert, now Luis Robert Jr., and Byron Buxton at 2 and 3. And Cedric Mullins II had a breakout year in 2021. We bought in, we had him 4th. Then George Springer, who is not eligible this year, he's now a right fielder, was 5th, and 2 different Mets because it wasn't clear who was going to play center field. Starling Marte and Brandon Nimmo were 6 and 7, respectively. Then towards the bottom, we were counting on bounce backs from Trent Grisham, who we had 8th, and Cody Bellinger 9th. And then at the very bottom, we went with Harrison Bader. He was on the Cardinals, then he's on the Yankees now. Either way, he's a great defender. We found room for him last year. Now, coming into this year, there are some pretty clear tiers in this position. And Mike Trout led in WAR last year. Of course he did. He had a 6-win season, even though he only played a partial year. He's Mike Trout. Then right behind him, we had Brandon Nimmo, Julio Rodriguez, and Michael Harris II. They were at 5.4, 5.3, and 4.8 respectively. Buxton, who played a partial season because that's what he does, had a flat 4-win season. He was 5th among the group. Then Mullins and Reynolds were 6th and 7th. They were both right around 3 WAR. After that, it kind of fell off a little with Robert missing a lot of the year and Bader missing a lot of the year as well. So the 8 through 10 class were Trace Thompson, Dylan Carlson, and Mike Yastrzemski, who were all between 2.2 and 2.5 WAR. So just looking at this, anyone in the field stand out to you or any glaring mistakes we made last year?
I mean, obviously, Mike Trout is that dude. He always stands out to me. I think that because of some unforeseen situations, he ended up playing a lot more center field last year than we thought he would. But he's seemed to have stuck there at least for another year with Brandon Marsh being gone in LA and Joe Adell not being what anybody thought. So Mike Trout sticking around at center field for at least another April, I guess. I think that Trent Grisham was a little disappointing. He still had a pretty decent season. I mean, he still had a 2-win year, but the bat has really not come around to what I think a lot of people around San Diego were hoping when they initially made that move to get him. And then Cody Bellinger obviously just has completely lost any semblance of ability that he had. I mean, he's been a below average hitter the last couple of years. Last year was actually his best year in a few. So it'll be interesting to see how he does moving forward. But Yeah, I think this is a really solid group, and I'm excited to talk about what we got going for this year.
Yeah, so let's stop talking about what we did last year and go into some guys who came close to making the list but didn't quite crack it. We have just missing the list, and we define just missing as receiving top 10 votes but not making the top 10. We had Riley Green, who our writers were pretty high on. Trent Grisham, of course, we talked about him already. Excellent glove, has hit in the past, hasn't hit for the past 2 years. And Mike Yastrzemski, who actually a lot of people snuck in their 9 or 10 spot. He's a good hitter. He's a league average to better hitter, and he is a decent center fielder. Any of these guys stand out to you as like, oh, we really messed up by not putting them on the list or anything like that?
I don't necessarily think we messed up, but I was really happy to see Riley Green in there. I think that he's obviously a really highly touted prospect when the Tigers took him in the first round just a couple of years ago, and he's still super young. He hasn't even hit his 23rd birthday yet, so I think he's really exciting. Some of his peripherals were a little encouraging, I would say. His ex Woba luck was a little bit higher than somebody that age you want to see, especially paired with his propensity to strike out quite a bit. But I think that defensively he showed some flashes, even though he graded out as about an average defender. I think part of the reason for that is we see him making a lot of flashy like diving catches, but I think it's one of those situations where it's hard to tell if he's actually good or if he is having to compensate by making spectacular plays. But the bat, I mean, he was 98 WRC plus last year, over 400 plus plate appearances. I think that we could see a little positive regression from Riley Green moving forward, hopefully. A lot of the contact numbers are pretty encouraging, so I like that.
Yeah, I heavily considered Riley Green. I ended up putting him 12th. I also heavily considered Trent Grisham, who I really wanted him to be a star. I really thought he was going to be a star. And the postseason this year was encouraging. He hit for a lot of power in the playoffs, which we hadn't seen from him in a long time. But the plate discipline is largely eroded with him, and that's the problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of what we're going to see with a lot of these guys, because a lot of your center fielders are your still athletic younger guys, and a lot of their offensive profiles still have some growing up to do, to put it lightly.
Yeah. Those just missed guys are like kind of depressing, but we're getting into the list now, and number 10 is really fun.
I do like 10.
Number 10, we have Corbin Carroll of the Diamondbacks. Carroll only played 32 MLB games last season, and in that span, he was good. He slugged an even 500 and produced 1.5 wins above replacement, which is really good for a small sample. But he did outperform his StatCast numbers, so that major league time, that's not what gets him on the list. What gets him on this list is just how much he torched minor league pitching as a 21-year-old last year. He slashed across 3 levels of the minors, 307, 407, 610 for a 158 WRC plus. He is projected by Roster Resource right now to start the year as the opening day center fielder for the Diamondbacks. So we could see a full year with Corbin Carroll in the big club. He's a top 5 consensus prospect. How excited should we be for Corbin Carroll?
I'm super excited for Corbin Carroll. I think that his speed is something that we should definitely be looking forward to. He's a big base stealer in the minors, which doesn't always mean something, but with him, I think there might actually be something there. His offensive stats, especially at AAA in the minors, I don't know. The AAA ball is the PCL ball, especially, can sometimes be a little bouncy.
It's juiced.
Yeah, it is. Just straight up, it is. But I think there is, some solid pop there. I think he's really exciting, and they've got a lot of exciting outfield prospects, kind of like we talked about in the second base episode with him and Alec Thomas and yes. Christian Robinson, right? That's his name. He's pretty good as well, even though he's had some legal troubles. But That's an exciting group, and I think that Corbin Carroll is the most exciting of all of them.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll is the best player in that group. He's not going to slug 600 in the majors because no one slugs six. Well, okay, two guys we'll get to later can slug 600 in the majors, but one of them's the greatest player of all time, and one of them would be the greatest player of all time if he could play more than 40 games. But Carroll's not going to do that. He is probably going to be a really good hitter. He's going to be like 25 to 30% above average. He has the blazing speed, and his defensive scouting ratings, at least, are good. There's not enough data on minor league defense, but he looks like he should be a good defender.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the Fangraphs prospect report for him. I mean, he's got 80 speed, 55 hit tool, 45 game power, 50 raw power. So there's definitely something there. He's going to be one of more of these bat to ball guys. Like you said, he's not going to slug 600. I mean, he's projected a 113 WRC plus this year, which is pretty solid for a guy who isn't even 23. Exactly. Yeah. So, and he is under team control until 2029, which is crazy to think about.
Yes.
But hopefully he pans out for them because he is really exciting right now.
He's exciting. Right. Corbin Carroll is probably like the most unknown quantity on this list. The most known quantity, I think, is number 9 here. It's Harrison Bader. He's a Yankee now. Harrison Bader is a defensive specialist. He's the defensive specialist at this position at this point. He remains an excellent fielder, 7 outs above average in 2022 in only like 2/3 of a season. He also just didn't hit it all last year. Just an 86 WRC plus and only 313 plate appearances. Now, he was hurt, so that he was playing hurt for some of the year. Yeah. So that was probably part of it. And he did really go for big power in the playoffs. It may be a swing change. We've seen guys go to the Yankees and get with Matt Blake before and have a swing change. Do we trust his bat enough to put him in the top 10?
I do trust his bat enough. And even if I think that at an 86 WRC plus, like he's still elite just because of the defensive value that he provides. So like in those 86 games that he played, he was a 1.5 WAR player with that 86 WRC plus. So I think if he can regress more towards his 97 career mark and still have that elite defense, he's easily a 3.5 or 4 win player. So I think that is advantageous for him. I think that potentially just a change of scenery could have been something that he needed. I know that center field at Yankee Stadium isn't exactly the cavern that it is in some other places. So I think that his numbers could start looking even better there. I'm excited for Harrison Bader to really show what he can do in a full healthy year. Like I said, like his bat isn't huge like some of the other guys on this list, but I think it's good enough. Like he's got a pretty solid ISO. It was 179 last year. So he's got the pop, but the bat to ball skills are really what hurt him.
Bad. They're really bad.
They're not good at all. So that's really what I'm concerned about with him. But like I said, the defense is just insanely good. And he even stole 17 bases in that 86 game. So he could be a 40 stolen base guy without, really batting an eye, even though he hasn't been before, but he's shown that it's possible.
He's the perfect center fielder in 1982.
Yeah. No, he's really like one of these throwback guys. It's like, wow, like he's playing today. It's crazy.
Yeah. Like you said, if Bader is a league average bat, that's a really, really valuable player. If he's a below league average bat, that's still a playable player. And I'm banking on him being league average. I really like the changes he made with the Yankees. He's been above average at points, not well above average or anything, but he has it in him. With the changes, I think he could have it in him again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go up to number 8 here. We already saw Corbin Carroll. This is going to be the second of 3 rookies on the list. And it's reigning NL Rookie of the Year, Michael Harris II. Harris was always supposed to be a superlative defender in center. He was given very high scouting ratings as a fielder, and he made good on that. 7 outs above average and 8 defensive runs saved last year. What was not expected was his offense. And last year, he really hit 136 WRC plus in 441 plate appearances. He also stole 20 bases, so this is a complete player. All of that packaged together was just under 5 wins, 4.8 WAR, and he got out of it a Rookie of the Year, and because he's a Brave, a nice extension. Do you trust his bat going forward? I really struggled with ranking him because I just don't. He hasn't hit like this before.
Yeah, I don't know. The peripherals, I'm not totally sure about. I don't think because, I mean, he struck out above league average and he walked significantly below the league average. The power was pretty incredible, I will say. His scouting ratings, did not at all project that sort of power for him. He only had
No.
35 game power and then hit 19 home runs in 114 games in the major leagues. But I do think we've seen something like this before. No example immediately comes to mind. But
Michael Brantley.
Yeah, where a guy first comes up, nobody knows how to pitch him, goes on a tear, shows a little more power than he really has, and then kind of comes back to earth after that. I don't think Michael Brantley is necessarily holistically a good comp for Michael Harris.
I was thinking of a guy who just hit in the majors after never really having hit like that before.
Yeah, and that's completely fine. We projected a 119 WRC plus next year, 4-win player, almost a 5-win player this year in his rookie year in 2/3 of a season. So we'll see. The BABIP was high, but he's also really fast.
Right.
So he's kind of an enigma to me, but I think that compared to the other players on this list, like I really like him as a whole. Like you said, with the extension, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what's in the water in Atlanta, but
yeah,
that's
insane. Do they have like a really good presentation or something?
They must. It's the 10% that or the 1% that goes to the Atlanta Braves Foundation. Yeah, that's what always gets them.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the Braves Foundation is.
But he is a little bit of a mystery for me. I'm excited to see what he does going forward. The bat could be real. I don't think we've really seen enough to be able to tell. The glove, I think we've seen enough to know is very real.
Yeah. Honestly, I was planning on leaving him off my list when I first started thinking about making center fielder list. And then Springer moved out of center, and I started looking at Harris more as like a potential number 10 guy. And the more I looked at him, just the more I liked him. And I was, okay, fine, I'll put him in. I'll have him at like number 9. And again, the more I looked, I just kept moving him up. And
yeah,
even if he is a 110 bat, even I think the defense and the speed are good enough that he belongs on this list for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 7 outs above average, 8 DRS in 114 games is pretty solid, especially because that is what he had. And I mean, he is a fast guy, so his glove didn't necessarily have the high grade on it as a whole, because I think there are some concerns about his arm. But that is a fast dude. He
can fly,
absolutely fly. So yeah, I'm very interested. He's one of the more intriguing guys on this list, I think.
He's probably the second most high variance guy on this list.
Oh, yeah, he's very polarizing.
He could be number 2 next year, or he could be off the list.
Yeah. I mean, we just looking real quick, we had guys rank him anywhere from 5 to 15.
Yeah. We just collectively didn't know what to do with him. I think 8 is a pretty good landing spot.
I think it is.
All right, let's go up to another kind of polarizing guy. A guy who got first place votes last year. And it is White Sox Digest, so we have to talk about him at length. Luis Robert Jr. Luis Robert is really, really talented. There's no question about that. But he's dealt with a lot of injuries. It's limited his playing time. And while he's been playing, we've all seen the videos of him unable to swing with 2 hands. He still, last 2 seasons, 130 WRC plus, 5.5 WAR, 25 homers, above average defense. And that's with him compromised. So the talent is clearly very real. Can he stay on the field? Can he get to the talent?
Yeah, and that's one of those things, right, where these lists are so hard to do because injuries are so difficult to predict. So, I mean, if you look at his 2 seasons, 68 games in 2021 was a 3-win year, and then 98 games in 2022 was a 2-win year with a difference of 40 points of WRC plus.
Yes.
So is he? I imagine he falls somewhere in between there. I think he's probably a 120 kind of guy just because of his power. But obviously, the plate discipline is a bit of a concern. The health, he just, like you said, hasn't really been able to stay on the field. And at times, he just looks out of his depth, frankly. Like you said, he's very talented. I think he's very toolsy. He hits the ball hard and he pulls the ball. So those are both good. The problem with it is he hits the ball on the ground a lot.
Yeah.
And that's something that they're going to need to, try and work out with him with the new regime on the south side. I think that they're going to have to look into that. His launch angle was 10 degrees last year. His average launch angle. So, like I said, he hits the ball pretty hard. I should say has the potential to hit the ball very hard. His max EV is 118. I mean, that's very
elite.
solid.
Yeah.
But the barrel rate is not elite.
No.
And the overall EV is not elite. So he's got to figure out how to start finding that Luis Robert, the guy that we know is in there. He's got to figure out how to more consistently unlock that.
Right. And again, I don't want to dock him too much because we saw he was swinging with one arm for a large part of the year.
Right.
Like, obviously, he's not going to be successful doing that, but he was being played anyway for some reason. He's really good. Like I said, this is a guy who got first place votes last year. That's how much we believed in him. And you know what? I was right there. I had him in the top 5 last year. And if you told me right now, Luis Robert's going to play 140 games next year, and he's going to be able to swing with both hands, I think I would put him in the top 5 again, even though there are a lot of stars in this position. Yeah. But I don't trust it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just some numbers to back up something I said earlier. His O swing percent, which is percentage of swings on pitches outside the zone, for his career is 46%, and last year was 48%. And the 2021 league average was 31%.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So his chase rate is
through the roof,
colossal.
So he is the free swinger.
Yeah, they need to tighten him up. And this is something that we talked about with Jazz last week when we talked, is that if he can start making more and better contact, we know what's in there. It's just something that
we know he can launch a ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now we're moving up into the true stars here with this top 6. Number 6, we have Cedric Mullins II. Mullins followed a breakout 2021 where he was named on MVP ballots with a step back in 2022, but he was still very solid. He was an above average bat again. He had plus defense, and he produced a lot of volume. All that was a 3.5 win season. In fact, from 2021 to 2022 combined, the last 2 years, Mullins is 5th among all outfielders in WAR. And the only people ahead of him are Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, and Yordan Alvarez. Mullins is probably the highest floor of anyone who's not Mike Trout on this list. And he does have that 6-win season under his belt where he was getting, again, down ballot MVP support. Why do we only have this guy at number 6?
I think a lot of it, I mean, if you look at his numbers, a lot of it is very similar to 2021. Especially like the walk and K rates were very similar. Where they diverge really is in the contact and power numbers. So his slugging percentage dropped 115 points from 2021 to 22, which really hurt his overall output, as well as, he hit half as many home runs. And he actually did steal more bases though. But I think a lot of it is because of that power fall off. He went from 136 to 106 WRC plus, and the BABIP dropped. So I think there's some, but maybe a little bit of bad luck there compared to 2021. But like you said, I mean, his floor That was a 106 WRC plus in a 3.4 win season. So he's another one of these guys that's got good defense. And he's probably got one of the best hit tools on this list, in my opinion, just in terms of what his floor is going to be.
Yeah, I really love his combination of floor and ceiling. His floor is this. His floor is like 6th or 7th at the position, and his ceiling is like 2nd.
Yeah,
That's
which we saw. We saw that.
Yeah. If he can just get close to that again, then this is like a laughable ranking for him. If he doesn't get close, well, then he's still going to be in the top 10.
Yeah, and I'm, the StatCast numbers are another thing. Is that the barrels were just down, which contributed to the power deficit as well. So I don't know what happened with Cedric Mullins. I mean, he was still fine. He was still really good. 3.5 wins is nothing really at all player to scoff at. But I think 2023 is going to be, is he more of the 2021 Cedric Mullins or more of the 2022 Cedric Mullins?
Yeah, I do too. And I think it's probably somewhere in between. I don't think he's an MVP candidate, but I do think he's closer to a 5-win player than a 3-win player.
Yeah, and I will say, just for anybody out there is like, oh, I just looked at Cedric Mullins' stats from like 2018 to 2020, and they suck. That's because he was still switch hitting.
Yeah.
As soon as he scrapped that,
he became great.
I mean, I remember watching him in 2018, 2019, thinking, man, this guy stinks. And then 2021 came around, and I was like, oh, wasn't he awful? And then now he's good. And turns out he stopped switch hitting. He's purely a lefty now, and he rakes.
Yeah. All right, let's go. We're continuing with some stars here. And we're going into the top half. Someone who's been in a lot of discussion this offseason, but no actual news yet. Number 5, he was our number 1 last year. Bryan Reynolds, still a Pittsburgh Pirate. Again, might not be for long, but we'll see. Reynolds, he was an MVP candidate in 2021. Just straight up. He hit for about a 150 WRC plus with elite defense in center field. He was probably a top 6 player in the National League that season. And he kept hitting last year. 125 WRC plus, 27 home runs in 145 games. That's really, really good offensive production, especially from a center fielder. His defense really fell off, though. He was plus 10 outs above average in 21, and he was minus 7 in 22. The bat is still really good, like we said. The glove might be really good. It might have been a result of him knowing he's probably going to get traded and taking his foot off the gas a little, kind of like we saw Bryce Harper do in his free agency year. I don't know. I really struggled with Reynolds. What do you think?
I think that this was kind of just a natural spot where he just sort of slotted in for me. The defense is somewhat of an enigma. Fielding Bible, they do DRS. They've always been a little lower on him than OAA has. Like they had him -5 DRS in 2021 compared to the plus 10 OAA from StatCast. But defensive metrics are just one of those things. I think that even with the eye test, though, just watching him, his defense did lag a little bit in 22. It might be the Bryce Harper effect. It might be just, I don't know if he's not really old enough to be losing a step. He's only 28.
Could have been playing through a lingering injury or something.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't make too much out of it, but the bat is legit. I mean, 2019, his first season, not just his first full season, but his first season in MLB.
He really
130. 2020, I don't care about, but it was a 71. And then 21 was a 141, 22 was a 125. This guy can hit, and he can hit well. He, walks a decent amount of the time, good OBP guy, and has some pop. So I like Bryan Reynolds. I don't think Bryan Reynolds is going to get traded simply because I think the Pirates' asking price is too high. So I think he'll stay put, but he could be, kind of a centerpiece of the beginning stages of a Pirates rebuild. And he could be one of these guys that they get 2 or 3 years down the road and think, man, we just need one more piece. And Bryan Reynolds is in his walk year. He's going to be something that they can use to either flip for value, or if they are in a playoff position, he's a guy that they're going to rely on in that situation.
Yeah, I'm with you on the bat. I really, really like the bat. I think I'd pencil him in for about a 130 next year, at least. He's a serious hitter. He has power. He walks. He has good gap power. And I like the glove. I think I I don't think he's as bad as he was last year. Like,
No, certainly not.
I think his true talent fielding is a lot higher than that. I do still think I would like him better in a corner.
I would love him in a corner. I really would.
Yeah, but on this list, I was a little lower on him. Not much, uh, just because I worry about the glove. These next few guys coming up are either Mike Trout or guys who are elite at both. But Reynolds is a really good player. He's going to be the Pirates All-Star next year, and he's going to be a deserving All-Star.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move up to number 4 here. And here we're getting into the tier of like superstars. These are some of the best players in baseball here in this top 4. And at number 4, Brandon Nimmo, who re-signed with the Mets this offseason. It feels very strange to call Brandon Nimmo a superstar, but here we are. He's proven himself a really high-level hitter, a 138 WRC plus over the past 3 seasons. And the way he does it is a little unconventional. He has the 6th best qualified on base in that span and a top 20 walk rate. There's not much power there. He's not a slap hitter by any means, but he is only slugging around 440 in that span. His value comes from his elite on base skills and some surprising defense. He's had above average defensive metrics across the board each of the past 2 years. So he doesn't do it the way we think of, but he did produce a 5.5 win season last year. Do we think he can keep doing that going forward?
I think that Brandon Nimmo's profile is exactly one that you want. It's one based on contact and on base skills, as opposed to being a pure power hitter or a pure speed hitter. And his defense is perfectly serviceable, but he's one of these guys. He reminds me a lot of George Springer, just in the sense that his skill set is going to age well over the course of this contract. I mean, like you said, he's got a 134 career WRC plus. He's not a huge power hitter, but he doesn't need to be. He gets on base so much. He is the quintessential leadoff hitter, I think.
Yeah, he's the perfect modern leadoff guy.
Yeah, he's got enough power. I mean, he hit not a career high, but he hit 16 home runs last year, which from your leadoff hitter,
which is fine.
Yeah,
with that on base skill, that's fine.
Yeah, he's getting on base 40% of the time and hitting a couple of home runs. I mean, there's nothing more you can ask for. The defense isn't elite; it's perfectly fine, but he has something about him where the ball finds him in big moments, and he makes plays. So.
And he is above average. He's just not elite.
He is above average. He's just not elite. So I like Brandon Nimmo. I think he's a good, solid player. I would love to have him on my own team. I really have nothing bad to say about him.
Yeah, I thought that was a great contract that he was given. I thought it was really fair for both sides. He's, like you said, he has a profile that's probably going to age very well. Typically, guys get a better eye as they get older. He already has an elite eye. He's just a solid player. I've had him in the top 5 3 years in a row, I think, and I don't plan on having him outside the top 5 at any point soon, honestly. He can be a metronome at this point, just putting up 4-win season after 4-win season.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Brandon Nimmo. I think that he's really exciting to watch too. He just plays the game with a certain bravado. I don't know. It's like
sprints to first base.
Yeah, sprints to first base after a walk. He's what every high school JV coach wants.
All right, let's go to the really fun guy. Number 3, the most interesting player in baseball, not named Shohei Ohtani, Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton is year in and year out the hardest player to rank in any position. When Buxton is on the field, he isn't one of the best players in baseball. He is the best player in baseball. His past 3 seasons, he's only played 192 games, but in that span, the numbers are incredible. 145 WRC plus, 60 home runs, 576 slugging, 19 outs above average, and 9.5 WAR. Buxton is the best. Buxton also averages about 60 games a season. I don't know what to do with Buxton.
Yeah, I don't either, really. I mean, just the ceiling is astronomical. I mean, it's
The ceiling is number one and like not close to anyone.
yeah, but the floor is pretty low. I mean, even beyond the injuries, he's kind of streaky, right? I mean, he struck
Yeah,
out 30% of the time
he has
last
he has
year.
no on base skill. He just makes it work.
Yeah. I mean, and he just hits the ball so hard too.
He's the most physically gifted player we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, he is a barrel machine for over the last 3 years. He's also been an injury machine. So, I mean, he's, the SpongeBob meme. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my arms. Every night I break my legs. Like, that is the cartoon incarnation of Byron Buxton. But he is such a phenomenal talent. I mean, the contract extension that they gave him,
It's perfect.
yeah, it's so bizarre, but it fits him perfectly because they're like, well, we'll give you this $14 million a year for the next 7 years, even though we think you're worth 30 because we think you're only going to play 80 games a year. Like, that's the way I look at that contract. So he is projected for a pretty substantial year in 2023. But he's one of these guys, he's like you said, it's just, how do you project that?
Yeah. If Buxton plays a full healthy season, he is the AL MVP and he's probably the MLB WAR leader. Like, he's that good.
Yeah, he's incredible. He really is.
Yeah. He's also just my favorite player in baseball to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that his 2017 is something that we can aspire for. 140 games, but he was only a 4-win player that year, which I
Yeah,
say
he
like it's
didn't
a
hit
bad
that
thing.
year.
But I mean, 140 games with the batting profile that he has now, and the guy that we know that he has evolved into,
Yeah, that's a
would easily
9-win
be
player.
an 8 or 9 win player without question.
Yeah. And yeah, he was impossible to rank here. I just truly didn't know what to do with him. I really wanted to put him number 2, but there's a guy at number 2
There
who,
is a guy there.
yeah, he's gonna be there for a while.
He will be there for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Number 2, Julio Rodriguez. He's finally here, and he is exactly what we were told he would be. He rakes. He's the AL Rookie of the Year, and did it with a 25-25 season. 28 homers, 26 steals, 146 WRC plus in total, 5.3 WAR. He actually had above average defense, which was shocking. He was projected to be like a fringy corner outfielder and ended up being a plus center fielder, which, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And just an overall electric personality. He's cool. He's popular. He's going to be 22 next year. He's led the Mariners to the playoffs. Is he going to be the guy who, sorry for the spoiler, everyone, but Mike Trout's number 1. Is he going to be the guy who overtakes Trout?
I mean, definitely at the center field position, I think he most certainly is the next great center fielder. I mean, he'll be in Seattle for a while too, with probably the weirdest contract I've ever seen.
Yes.
So many stipulations. I'm not even going to try and discuss it, but it's
Yeah,
a long
no.
time. It's a long time and a lot of money. That's all you need to know. He's an absolute electric factory. I mean, watching him, it felt like every other at bat he was doing something incredible, and every other day in the field he was doing something incredible. But this is what we knew he was going to be. Like, this is a guy. His lowest WRC plus in full season ball was a 145. he had in 59 games of rookie ball, 161 WRC plus, and then he had that 145 in 18 games at single A, which I guess might not even been full season, or in 67 games at single A, and then a 243 WRC plus at 18 in high A in 72 plate appearances, small sample, but holy cow. I mean, this guy, all he does is hit, and all he's ever done is hit. he has such a crazy high ceiling. I mean, there's really nothing that you can say about him except the defense. The defense is a little questionable, but it worked last year. It worked. That's all that matters.
Yeah, the defense might not be real, but even if it's not, I don't really care if
I
he's
don't
going to
care
hit.
either.
Because last year the hitting was really good. Like I said, it was a 146, which is great. It's going to be better than that. Like that's not his ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little lucky. I mean, he outperformed his ex-Woba by 30
He did.
points. But he hits the ball so hard.
And he was 21.
And he was 21. So I'm hoping that my ideal world for Julio Rodriguez, keep hitting the ball that hard, strike out a little less, walk a little more, and that's a 15-time All-Star, 5-time MVP, first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yes, and that wouldn't shock me at all. Like these top three are very obvious MVP candidates, and Julio is probably the one who I would be least surprised if he won MVP in 2023.
I mean, speaking of first ballot Hall of Famers, though.
Yeah, we already said who number one is. Everyone listening to this knew it was coming. Number one, Mike Trout. He was unanimous. He's been unanimous every year that we've done this exercise. 26 voters, 26 first place votes for Trout. I don't even think there's anything I have to say about him. Like everyone listening to this or watching this knows who Mike Trout is. He's the greatest baseball player any of us have seen, unless you were alive when Babe Ruth was playing. Do you have anything to say about Trout, or do we just leave his name up on the screen and marvel at it?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't, go look at his baseball reference page. Lots of black ink. I mean,
Lots of it.
This guy is just an absolute stud, no doubter, all-time talent. There's nothing more to say, nothing bad you can say. You hope he holds up as he gets older, right? Knock on wood. But I mean, he's finally past 30. It feels like he's been 25
He's been around
forever. Yeah. I mean, he's been around since 2012 and now it's 2023 and he's still every bit as talented as we thought he was then. I do think that he's getting to the point where, I don't know, is he still the best player in baseball? That's a completely different discussion.
Not.
I would say probably not.
Ohtani.
I mean, Ohtani, Soto, J-Rod, all these kind of guys have arguments.
Yeah. I think if I was ranking just for next year, I think I would still take Trout number 2.
I'm still taking Trout number 2. Ohtani, I don't need that guy's not human. He doesn't count.
Yeah, Ohtani is the most talented player to ever live.
Yeah. I mean, the real question, though, and the only one that really matters is how many games do the Angels win next year? And I think it's like 75 again.
I think they'll be a little better. I kind of like their strategy of getting a bunch of average dudes.
Yeah.
I think they win like exactly 80. They'll be exactly 2 games under 500.
I'm just so beyond sick of the Angels being bad. Like, I don't like the Angels, but I want the Angels to be good so that Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani can do something cool in October.
The best possible outcome would be the Angels tying. Oh, no, there are no more tiebreaker games. The best thing would have been the Angels tying for the last playoff spot and having Ohtani pitch in a 1-game elimination.
That would be absolutely electric. I can't even imagine.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, Angels, because I know Artie Moreno is definitely listening to this. Go get more guys.
Please.
Get Trout and Ohtani to the play. You're not going to have Ohtani after this year. Get him to the playoffs once in Anaheim, please.
Before I have to deal with him on a team that I can't stand.
Yeah, before he goes to the Mets or something.
God, I can't. Oh, just thinking about it makes me sick. But we don't have to worry about that with Trout. He's an Angel for life.
Yeah, Trout's an Angel for life unless he decides to go to Philly.
Yeah, that would be okay.
Yeah.
But that would also be like a 39-year-old Mike Trout.
Right.
Unless he gets traded, which I mean, you thought
so.
If you thought the Soto package was ridiculous, I don't even know what a Mike Trout package would look like.
A Trout trade would be impossible because it would be, here, you have to take on this big contract and we get all your best prospects.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be impossible.
Yeah. Right, so ready to talk about our lists?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to read off for those of you who are just listening and aren't watching, you can't see it on the screen. Our composite list again was Mike Trout, unanimous number 1, Julio Rodriguez number 2, Byron Buxton number 3, Brandon Nimmo 4, Brian Reynolds 5, Cedric Mullins the second 6, Luis Robert Jr. 7, Michael Harris the second 8, Harrison Bader 9, and Corbin Carroll 10. My personal list, I agreed with the top 4, Trout, J-Rod, Buxton, Nimmo, flipped Mullins and Reynolds, Mullins at 5, Reynolds at 6. I moved Harris up to 7, Robert at 8, Bader 9, and then at number 10, and I know we're going to have to talk about him, I had Trace Thompson. I was the only person to even rank him in their top 15. I know I'm going to end up talking about that. But Joey, why don't you read your list out first?
Yeah, so I had virtually the same list as the composite list, except for one small swap lower down. So I had Trout, Rodriguez, Buxton, Nimmo, Reynolds, and then Michael Harris, Luis Robert, Cedric Mullins, and then Bader and Carroll.
So yeah, that's my first question, and probably only question for you is why you moved Mullins down to 8.
I think it's one of those things where Harris and Robert are just younger and toolsier at this point. I think that for 2023 alone, I would maybe go Mullins, but I kind of looked at this as like a 3-year window moving forward, right? I didn't necessarily do it just for 2023, just because that's how I think about players in terms of future value. So I had Harris and Robert ahead of Mullins. Those 3 guys I could pretty much shuffle around, put in a random number generator, and I would be fine with whatever came out. So that was just my thought process. They're like 6A, 6B, 6C for me, really. Outside of that pretty clear top 5, it's those 3 guys pretty close to each other.
There's a lot of really good players. Like there's a top 8, and then there's Bader as the next tier. And then you kind of have the chance to put in a guy at 10. And some people put in Yaz, that's fine. Some people are composite, and you put in Corbin Carroll. We already talked about him. He's going to be really good, at least we hope. I put in Trace Thompson. So this was a really hard ranking for me. I really liked Trace Thompson's season. And I know he's older. He was 31. And he played for the Dodgers for most of the year, which of course helps everyone. He slugged 500, and he had a 350 on base. He had a 142 WRC plus, and he only outperformed his ex-Woba by 4 points. Like I really trust his bat a lot.
Okay, well that makes one of us. I mean, I think that Trace Thompson is a small sample merchant personally. I mean, 146 WRC plus in 2015 in 44 games, and then a 186 in 2021 in 15 games, and 142 in 2022 in 80 games, all while striking out like 30% of the time.
He strikes out a huge amount.
Yeah, striking out 30% of the time and walking not nearly enough to make up for how much he strikes out. He's weird. I don't even know what to make of him. That's kind of why I shied away from even looking at him. Like I scrolled through this whole list, obviously, and I looked at everybody on there, and he's one of those guys where I was like, he just doesn't feel like a top 10 center
He
fielder.
doesn't feel good, but
he's fun.
The one thing that kept sticking out to me was, and unfortunately, to my knowledge, this isn't available on Baseball Savant yet. I wish it was. But I remember reading partway through the season an article about how bat speed metrics are coming.
Ooh.
It was by Mike Petriello. I believe he was also on an episode of Effectively Wild talking about it.
Yeah.
And Trace Thompson was like 7th in baseball in bat speed. And the guys around him were like Yordan Alvarez and Juan Soto.
Yeah.
And Byron Buxton.
So here's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I love that. Like that to me is huge. Like if all the guys around you on a list are really good, you're probably going to be really good.
Yeah. So here's the thing with bat speed, though, for me, is just thinking on sort of like a micro level. Like there is such a thing as hands that are too quick. In the sense that you crush fastballs and then everything else, you just look like a total fool. I don't know if that was the case for Trace Thompson.
I'll pull up his here. If Baseball Savant isn't crashing.
Oh, I'm actually looking at Fangraphs, and fastball he had certainly the most valuable, and then cutters second most valuable. Really struggled against off speed, but breaking stuff he was okay.
Okay, yeah. He killed sinkers. He had a 551 WOBA against sinkers.
That's not too bad.
He was really good against sliders. 337. That's really good against sliders. 513 against cutters. 430 against splitters, but that's not much of a sample size. He was about average against four seam and actually a little above average against curveballs and really bad against changeups.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to pound him with changeups, he is pretty good against everything else.
Yeah. But I mean, at this point, I would just pound him with changeups.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing.
He's the biggest gamble I made on any list.
Yeah, and he absolutely I'm not going to deny that he had a fantastic 2022 because obviously I can't even argue that. But I'm concerned about his sustainability.
I am too, but I wanted to get him in here.
He's fun. I don't see
a problem with it. All right. Anything else you wanted to get in today before we finish here?
I think definitely keep an eye on a couple of guys. One of the guys who just missed out that we didn't actually talk about was Mike Yastrzemski. I know he's old. He got kind of a late start, but he's a 113 career WRC plus who was really good in the short season in 2021. I don't know. I think that he is somebody to keep an eye on. His profile is pretty interesting. He walks a good amount. He's got a little bit of power.
His ballpark hurts him.
It really does, and it's just sad. And he's pretty much done before he even got a chance to get started. He's already 33 almost. He'll be 33 by the end of this season.
He was very close to making our composite list.
He was, and
a lot of people had him 9th or 10th.
Yeah, and he just is one of those guys that I don't know. I hope he does well. But if he starts to fall off a little bit, I wouldn't be too surprised. I mean, the bat to ball is already dropping considerably in terms of, yeah. But he's somebody to keep an eye on to where I think he's talented enough that he could have a little bounce back. And then the other one that we didn't talk about that I want to touch on is Dylan Carlson. I think that an underrated aspect of the Bader Jordan Montgomery trade was the fact that Dylan Carlson's going to have to play center field now, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't know how good of a center fielder is. He graded out okay there last year. He wasn't fantastic, but it's really the bat that kind of intrigues me with Dylan Carlson. As a prospect, he was highly touted. I mean, he had slightly above average tools. So he's not one of these incredibly talented guys, but he's got a decent eye. He's got a little bit of pop that really didn't come through in 22, but in 21 he hit 18 home runs, which is perfectly fine. He had two win seasons in a row, pushing 3. I think he could be somebody that could have a big breakout in 2023.
Yeah, he's a pretty high floor guy. And if some of the high variance guys fall off and Carlson just keeps doing what he's doing, you could easily see him 9th or 10th on this list next year.
Yeah, and I'm hoping for it. I'm pulling for him. I like him. I like switch hitters that can actually switch hit. Yes. He hasn't proven to be too dreadful at it so far. So I'm hoping and praying for Dylan Carlson.
Yeah. All right, that's going to be it for us today. As you can see on our text crawl, if you're watching, our website and socials are scrolling across the screen. I'll read them off if you're not. Our website is diamonddigest.com. Our Twitter is @diamond_digest. And our Instagram is diamond.digest. You can find all of our other work there, our writing, our other podcasts, whatever you'd like. And make sure to come back for more episodes if you liked this one. And if you didn't like it, if you thought our list was terrible, well, then you can tweet at us and send us your own list, I guess. I'm probably not going to argue with you, but someone might. Any goodbyes you want to say today, Joey?
No, I think that was, I'm happy with our list, and it'll be completely different next year.
Yes, it will. All right, that'll do it for today. Hope to see all of you or have all of you hear us next time. Go baseball.